into another IT Leadership Lab live stream. Today we're going to be talking about the IT Leader Tightrope. So how you are trying to balance between individual contributor and leadership, and how you prioritize all of those tasks, especially when surprises come up along the way. For those of you all who don't know me, I am Brittany. I am a senior community engagement manager at Ninja One, and I help run the IT Leadership Lab. So basically, for those y'all that don't know about the IT Leadership Lab, it's a community dedicated to IT leaders, place for you to share content, learn from peers, build your community, things like that. So, and in that vein, we host bi-monthly webinars that are dedicated to IT leadership topics and help you kind of navigate the tricky world of IT leadership. And then we also bring on actual IT leaders that are within the space that can share their own expertise. So for today, I have three panelists on with kind of a variety of different experience. So we're going to go ahead and do a little roundtable introduction. So Nate, if you want to introduce yourself, I know you have been in the chat a lot, but if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in IT, I would love to. I'd love to hear about it.
Sure. So I'm Nate Payne. I've been in IT for almost 30 years now. Started as a consultant, upgrade project at a law firm, 700 PCs, and just sort of progressed through there. Held pretty much every position there is to hold in IT. And currently I run a managed services company, and I also do some IT leadership coaching. But yeah, that's my story.
Awesome. Abby, you are also new to being on the panel. So if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Sure. I'm Abby. I've kind of similar to Nate there. I've done everything there is to do in IT. I imaged my first computer when I was 12 years old in school because a classroom needed a new computer, and that guy was like, "Hey, do you want to learn how to do this?" And I'm like, "Yes, obviously." And ever since then, I've just kind of continuously done tech. So I've done a myriad of different jobs in different industries and different verticals. My last previous job, I worked as the director of tech for about 7 years, and now I own a managed services company, and I'm doing kind of the same thing. I'm still leading a team of technicians and still trying to provide technical support to other companies. Just now it's external instead of internal. Pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the intro. And then Kelly, you have been on quite a few times. You're a vet at this point, but if you want to introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about you and IT.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Kelly Schrader, and I've been in IT for a while, kind of about, I guess it is about 25 years now. Similar stories, I think. I haven't actually done anything in the MSP space, but started off actually installing Ethernet cable for large organization, and that was kind of the eye-opening moment for me. Started hooking up computers and learning a little bit about it in 2000, and then decided this was what I wanted to do with my life after getting exposed a little bit. Been through a lot of different organizations. Right now I'm leading the IT department for a network of charter schools in Colorado. It's schools are a fun space. Definitely chaotic, but I've got a great team, and happy to talk about managing through chaos.
Yeah. Based on we talked a little bit about this backstage, but Kelly's currently kind of running double duty and taking over multiple hats right now, which is kind of the theme whenever it comes to IT leadership. So I think this will definitely be a very poignant topic. So we can go ahead and jump a little bit. We can jump right into the questions that I have for y'all. And so the first thing I wanted to start it off with is, how long were you an individual contributor before you started managing people? Was it a long period of time, or was it, you had been in IT a couple of years and then suddenly you have to start managing things? So what was that journey like?
We are talking about managing like our
Like
own
people,
team, and not managing
like, yeah.
the end users, right? Because I think we all can say we have to manage expectations with our end users.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, management as far as it could be
Yeah.
individuals, it could just be team functionality, things like that.
I can kind of start off. So for me, it's always been a little bit of a mixed bag. I've always had to manage some form of people underneath me, per se, mainly kind of like as a team lead in the beginning. I was just the one that wanted to do it. Everyone else just wanted to do tech. I like to be in charge of something. So I ended up wanting to lead a team of like people that were the same age as me, kids also in school, trying to figure things out. And then as I progressed into the actual careers, it was a lot more of individual contributor. Not necessarily because there wasn't like an opportunity or that we didn't someone else was leading. It's just because oftentimes I was in an SMB. There was only one person that even offered, or there was only one position for tech. It took probably like 12 years working in the industry before I actually had someone underneath me, and then it was just an intern. Right, it was a really slow buildup because being in the small business space, it takes a long time to be at a level where you can hire somebody else on.
Mm-hmm.
So now I manage way more than I ever did on a W-2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kelly, Nate, what about y'all? How long were you kind of doing that individual contributor work before getting management?
Yeah, for me, it was about 15 years from help desk and desk side support, administration, systems engineering.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to be an IT leader. I had some really good IT managers, and I had some who, weren't so great. But I saw what they went through, and it's not something I chased. I literally fell into it the first time, where we had the IT director at the time was sort of at the end of his career, and he decided to check out early. And there was just literally no one who knew what was going on, right?
Yep.
So I had the institutional knowledge. So I don't know if it was they had great confidence in me so much as, well, next up. And yeah, so that's kind of how I made the jump.
Yeah. That seems like a very common theme. Oh, I wasn't planning on being a leader and now suddenly
Yeah.
I am.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. I guess I'll do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
For me, yeah, it was about 11-ish years, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And it wasn't, I was motivated actually by bad leadership. So I was in the first day where I can remember thinking, maybe I should do this work. I was part of a committee that was put together to solve a problem in our organization. And we worked through like the problem solving. Like this was a big deal, kind of, for me at least at the time. The fishbone charts and all the the root cause analysis, all the PM kind of work, and there was a guy in there that I knew wanted to be in charge. And so when we were transitioning into the, okay, who's going to start being the person responsible, I raised my hand because I knew he would not be a healthy leader. I didn't want to lead, but I wanted him to lead less than I didn't want to lead.
That is fair. A bad manager can absolutely tank an experience. So, were there any kind of resources that you may have used during that transition from individual contributor to IT leader that may have kind of helped make that a little bit easier?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, for me, I went looking for leadership books, IT leadership books. I did the whole Gardner thing and, Infotech and just, a bunch of the resources out there, which were great. Later on, I realized that I sort of needed to create my own thing to make this happen. But yeah, those were some of my resources in the early days, just to get my arms around, what is this, what's expected. But it's a difficult challenge to sort of be really good at something and set that down, and then pick up something else that you're really not quite good at.
Yeah.
And I think the tendency is to sort of want to go back to where you're most comfortable. And so that definitely took a little while, to sort of embrace the new role.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I guess I had, in a way, I had like a little bit of a head start from my peers. I grew up in scouting, and part of what I did as I was getting closer to turning 18 is I both attended and led the National Youth Leadership Training Summit for our area. So I still have the book somewhere if I could dig it out somewhere, like training manual for a youth leader. So doing that at 16 really gave me kind of a leg up, I guess, or like a little bit more foundational knowledge on how to manage people and how to just get your idea across to people without sounding like someone that Kelly wants to replace. But it was that, and then I think what really helped me was just being in an environment where I was able to see great leaders. After I left my couple first jobs, I ended up working for a few years in education, and like literally when I was an intern in that job, the director of technology, IT, he came up to me, he's like, you're an intern. What do you want to do in 10 years and stuff? I was like, I want your job. I see what you're doing, and it's like, it's awesome. Like, you're doing really great things. So I think now as a leader, when I look back on that, I see, wow, like my experiences were because of having great leaders that I could look up to as either as a child, as an intern, or as a young professional. So I try to be that now to give the next generation somebody to look up to, so that way they're not just discouraged from doing what we need.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. I love that.
Since I came kind of sideways into leadership, yeah, I didn't pursue anything methodical, but luckily, like Avi, I had some good leaders other than the person I didn't want, that I could emulate and learn from, and that definitely bootstrapped it for me. I didn't really do any formal learning about, I shouldn't say formal, any leadership focused learning really until only like probably 6-7 years ago. So after I'd already been in a leadership position, making plenty of mistakes, that started to actually work the discipline as a role rather than as another hat that I put on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that kind of mentality of, oh, I didn't really prepare to be a leader until I was already a leader for quite some time.
Yeah.
My first job, I became like a manager within like a year, and I was 23 and I had no idea what I was doing. Not even 23. I think I was 22 and I was so confused, and I was just kind of blindly going about it. And I'm sure that I made plenty of mistakes along the way, but it was definitely one of those things where I didn't really do that formal training until further on in my career. And now I'm not a leader, so now I'm just an individual contributor again, and it's a lot less pressure, I'll say.
Don't you lead the lab?
What was that?
Don't you lead the lab?
Yeah, but I don't lead people, which is the most challenging part for me. Uh, but yeah, I kind of want to transition to thinking about the day to day as an IT leader. So we all know that the world of technology is kind of ever evolving. There's so many things to keep up with. So, how do you kind of, or how would an IT leader keep their technical skills sharp while not getting too in the weeds on technical projects that maybe the team should be handling?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, you have to accept that you're going to lose a little bit of your chops, and you have to be okay with that. There's only so much time, in any given day. And the reason you're in the position you're in, you still have a responsibility and things that need to be done. And if you still want to have a life, that is, um, and then you want to let your team do their job, right? So part of it, to me, I still see it as being a player coach, right? Um, I can get on the field with you guys, but I do better on the sideline and call plays. And you just try to bring in really good players and you coach them up, and you build a team. And so that in and of itself is a skill, right? And it might not be, building out a network or troubleshooting a piece of software, but it is a skill within itself. And it's something that's asked of you and needed as you, sort of progress in that leadership role.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know, Abby, you have an entire business that you're running.
Yeah.
And how do you kind of do that and manage, it may not necessarily be people. Um,
Uh,
it's, other.
yeah, I'm still learning. There's nothing like running full steam into operating a company while renovating your house while your wife is pregnant with your first child. So, can I get back to you in July once the
Sure,
wing was
sure.
born?
Yeah. We'll see how
Um,
you feel in July if
yeah,
you feel any more prepared for anything.
yeah. I think it's a lot of what Nate said, where you just have to acknowledge that you're not going to be the best at the tech stuff anymore because your job is not tech. Your job is to lead a group of tech people. Um, I've I've been doing tech for so long, so much of my life that I've been like, I don't know if I want to do tech so much anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
want to I want to help people that want to do tech as their career. Like that seems like more fun. Cultivating the next group of people that can take over my role or take over any of our roles. Um, so like if you can think about those things and think about how you can just leave a lasting legacy of some kind, it's like, oh, okay, well maybe I can just coach. Maybe I can take a step back and be a leader and actually just train people that are in underneath me to be better leaders. So kind of like you don't want to like keep your knowledge to yourself, because that doesn't help anybody, including yourself. So just by disseminating as much information, being there for your team and leading them, you let them become better, so you can more confidently take a step back and rely on your team to get the job done. And like you're saying that, oh yeah, you might not have the best tech skills, you might be better at something else. As someone who's been a jack of all trades my whole life, I can't think of a single time where I really wanted to do something, but I wasn't good at it, and I didn't have the time to learn how to do it. Like I learned to sew when I was 10 years old. I still suck at it. But I don't have the time to invest into learning and producing any form of fabric or clothing. And so it's a really bad skill for me. Am I better than someone who's never done it? Sure. But if you acknowledge that you just don't have the time to invest 10,000 hours into a skill, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can just take that time and do something that could impact more. Maybe I can give that time to someone else who does have the 10,000 hours to put into it.
Mm-hmm.
I had an epiphany a few years ago. I was listening to a podcast called The Nerd Journey. And Don Jones Gannon from Pluralsight, he's not there anymore, but at the time he was. He said something that just was one of those that's so basic that I should have thought of it already, but it was mind-blowing at the same time. And he said that leadership is a different profession from being a technical person. It's a different job. And that really reframed everything for me. And I realized that, yeah, when I was going fully into being a leader, that I needed to pivot. This was actually a job transition, not just a new title that I was putting on. And it required different things of me, even as a technical leader. Yeah, it was that really helped me kind of get into a different headspace about what I was doing and why. This week I'm on site at one of my schools. I had somebody resign suddenly last week, and now I'm here being the on-site person, and I'm bad at it. This is tier 1 level, reset Chromebooks and I can do the stuff and I can figure it out, but I don't have the day-to-day experience. I'm plowing through documents. Yesterday I couldn't print. And so figuring out how to give myself a code so I can release my job from the print server was just too much. I just had to ask one of my sysadmins to take care of it for me. And a lot of that was time.
Yeah.
Like both Nate and Abhi have said, it's just like there's a finite amount, and I can't be good at both. But sometimes I have to be. There's no choice, especially in small teams. You're going to have to do all the stuff. I do e-discovery searches, and I pull footage from security cameras, and I do a lot of sensitive work that is technical adjacent, but I'm not writing any PowerShell scripts anymore. I'm not working on back-end integrations, or the closest I get to technical work most days is resetting passwords and doing basic stuff.
I think in that vein, Kelly, like one thing that I've loved to do is like operate a home lab. And so like just different services that are fun. If I mess up, who cares? It's fine. Yeah. It doesn't affect anybody. It's okay. It's just a fun playground. But it just kind of like, it just gets me engaged in working that part of my brain. You can do the same thing with like a puzzle book, like really, cryptic logic puzzles, it trains the same part of your brain to think about those technical things that we love and we've gotten so used to. So yeah, sure, it's not computer based, but it's the same thing, right? And like for those scripting, yeah, I suck at scripting. I absolutely suck at it. But my favorite LLM is pretty good at it, and I'm pretty good at understanding code. So when you put the two together, it gets the ball rolling, and it makes it really easy for me to like, oh, that's simple. I can just generate a script, make sure it works properly, look it over. Yay. It does the one thing I need.
Mm-hmm.
It took me longer than it would have done just to do it manually, but it's okay. It was fun.
Yeah. Yep, I hear that.
Yeah. I started learning C# recently because I wanted to start doing like game stuff, and so I'm in the very, very beginning stages, and even that I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, I'm typing words, and I sort of know what they mean and what they're doing, but who's to say? So,
It's fun though. Are you having fun?
I am enjoying it.
Good.
I'm enjoying it.
That's what matters.
Yeah, I definitely always need something to do that I'm learning or something like that. So I'm actually curious, Kelly, you were talking about what kinds of projects you're doing and how you're not really doing a lot of technical work. What kinds of projects are you working on then that are for the IT team that maybe aren't as technical?
It's a lot of people work.
Okay. Yeah.
It's coordinating, it's getting people on board, it's finding resources.
Mm-hmm.
For example, so like I said, I'm in a school, this middle schools and high schools, and so right now when I'm not doing this stuff, I'm doing a road show where I go from school to school, meet with the school leaders, and say, what are you doing for fall? What are your plans for the fall semester, so that we can support them, because schools are heavily technologically dependent and heavily technically unaware.
Mm-hmm.
So we frequently are in the we started using this 6 weeks ago and it doesn't work right, so I need you to fix it now. And we're going, I've never heard of what you're doing. So it's a lot of relationship building, a lot of trust building, or restoring trust. The situation where I'm on site here it's a little bit complicated to navigate, and so trying to set the replacement hire up for success by fixing some of the things that didn't go right with the last person, and starting to reforge those relationships. So and then I spend a lot of time thinking about the future, like what's next. We're like everybody else, we're trying to figure out AI, and so it's trying to see into the future and help school leaders make good choices about how we use AI in a responsible way, rather than just being, no, AI is terrible, the kids are only going to cheat. Well, how do we actually teach them to use AI well?
Yeah.
And thinking through some of those kind of bigger problems that are down the road, and setting my team up for success. So trying to identify the things that are going to be problems in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's the largest part of my leadership hat.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. For IT leaders that are trying to figure out their balance, how can they decide what tasks can be delegated? This is a question for everyone. I mean, there are so many different things that you need to do on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And how do you decide where all of those tasks can go and if they can be delegated?
If they can be delegated, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're doing an e-discovery search, maybe your tier one shouldn't be doing that for a variety of reasons. But if it can be something you can give to somebody, give it away. Now, obviously, if your team is overloaded, probably don't do that. Like take on some of the burden, but give away the burden to your, your helping role rather than your leadership role.
Mhm.
It's still technically, you're not just being like, you're not keeping the tasks. Give it all away.
Mhm.
Yeah, for me, I try to teach something like this. There's an operational side, right? So I'm the IT leader, and people call into the help desk. They need technical assistance. There are projects we're responding to things, and so to me that's one bucket.
Mhm.
The other bucket is strategic, meaning these are what I call global goals and initiatives. This is what the organization as a whole cares about. So when I come in, I look at both of those. So I'm going to talk. I think Kelly was just saying this. He says I go out and I'm talking to the people right there on the ground, and I'm doing this ahead of time, right? I'm not, because we're in May, and he's saying I'm already planning for the fall. Okay, so that's the mindset that you want, but you have to separate the two in terms of what's going on. Now, what Abby was saying is one of the challenges that you end up is this being overwhelmed. And so as a leader, one of our responsibilities is to be able to set expectation with leadership and then also with our team. Okay. So one of the things to do, it's great to know what's important to leaders, but you have to understand how important it is. And what I mean is everything can't be a 10, right? Because if everything's a 10, then nothing's a 10. So you have to get them to quantify. And typically what I do is I said, okay, I'm listening. Here's our goals. Here are the initiatives. This is what we're trying to get done. On a scale of 1 to 5, how critical is this initiative to completing this goal? The reason you do that is because when you go to that operational side and you're trying to determine, okay, what role does IT play in moving that initiative forward, it all trickles down. Because if that initiative is a 5, then everything I do to support it is a 5. Now, once I have that established, when you come at the last minute and you ask me to do something and I'm working on this 5, I just turn it back around to you and say, well, we're working on this. Our resources are maxed. We're working on your 5. Would you like me to drop that and go fix your printer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or maybe we hire additional resources. So it's just kind of setting up how that ecosystem works and the priorities and being able to communicate that back. And then you become a consultant to leadership, right? Instead of just here, toss it, you go do it, type of thing without regard to what else is happening. Anyway, just
Yeah. No,
how
that
I approach.
yeah, that was actually one of my next questions too, was how do you prioritize between urgent technical issues and long-term strategic goals? Because those two can often happen at the exact same time and you can kind of struggle.
We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to manage.
Yeah, no one told you? You're allowed to do
You can, yes.
I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah, so how do you balance that? Because I can see how difficult that could be.
I don't know
Well,
if I
it's a
have
mindset, right? So here's what I try to remember. The only reason I'm here is because we're in business to solve a problem for a customer. So the business leads. Whatever the business is doing to better serve their customers, to gain market share, that's the priority. So the business always sets it. I'm just drafting behind them. So let them set it, let them prioritize. you follow behind them in terms of, putting resources where impact is going to happen, and then let the choice be up to them. Right? I can do this or I can do this, but based on our conversation and how you prioritized it, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
One of the things that helped me kind of visualize that, put it down on paper at least, is actually tracking all of my time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you have to reset a password, track the time.
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to go too detailed into it. And they make these like cool time cubes and stuff that you can just like flip to different tasks to keep track of what you're doing. So like, have you heard of those?
No. What is that?
I don't have one, but it's a physical cube or like, physical cube, or it's a physical time tracking flip thing. And you can flip it to different sides, and it just tracks your time based on what custom code you've put into it. So like, coffee break or programming or business meeting, whatever it is, right? You just flip it around. One of those could work, right? Or you just have an app on your desktop or your phone that's just a timer. And you just have to get into the habit of actually tracking what you're doing, because then you'll see, resetting a password doesn't just take 2 minutes or 30 seconds. That's one of those.
Is that one of them? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's very cool. I've never seen that.
And you'll realize that especially when you're early in your career, or if you can distill this to the juniors that are underneath you, if you're a mid-level in your career as well, is understanding that things take way longer than you expect them to, right? Like just joining this call, it took me how long to get my camera working? And all four of us, we've done camera things how many times? Right? We've turned on a webcam hundreds of times, and yet you still have issues. And it's like, okay, this is taking 5 minutes longer than it should have.
Yeah.
So just by understanding how much time things take, you then are able to say, I don't actually have time to take on all of this. And when we are doing those strategic goals, or when we're figuring out what we're going to do in the next year, you can more easily plan out your projects and your tasks and say, I need at least 12 hours a week to do this task, whatever it might be, or these subset of tasks. And you build that into your availability.
Yes.
So like for me, when I have a time calendar that people can book time for on my calendar, I purposely block out segments. Like I need to eat lunch. Like, right, I put that on there.
Yeah.
It's like I need to go to the bathroom. I sometimes put that on there as just like take a break. It sounds weird, but when you need to manage so much, you need to be really, really meaningful with every minute of your day. Which that can be a whole nother like task, right? That is hard to do, but if you get even moderately good at it, it helps tremendously.
With both of what's been said has been really good, and I think that for me, recognizing that one of the things that I can do that's important for my team is that leadership, is that planning part, is that communication, that no one else can do that. So it can feel like things are on fire, and there's that pressure from the organization to jump in and do the thing that is urgent. And that actually might not be the right thing for me to do for the team at that time. That I'm actually impacting their long-term success by solving a short-term problem that is actually out of my scope.
Yes.
There's a time for it, but generally speaking, I've found that when I take time away from the planning, from the strategic stuff, from the communication, from the relationship building, I end up impairing my team and affecting their success.
Yeah, that gets me thinking about something I just heard about children. I was just reading about like preschool and how important it can be to education. Um, and it was just what you said, Kelly. It was like if you take away certain things from a child early on, it hampers their skill set later. So like if you don't let them play with Play-Doh or little tiny bricks and tiny things for their hands, it's harder for them to grasp a pencil because they don't have that dexterity and those fine motor skills. So you have to just let people learn. You have to like let them fail because that just gives them that little bit extra bit of understanding of what's going on, so that way they can do better next time. Because that's what we're all trying to do, right? Like trying to be better tomorrow than we are today.
Well, I think too, this sort of circles back to what we talked about earlier. You want to train the leaders for the future. And the best way to do it is just model the behavior, right? And that's another way, even to me, a better way of teaching. So as they take on leadership roles later in their career, they're going to remember, well, oh, that's right. It's okay for me to let somebody try and fail and figure it out, right? And that's totally okay. One thing, Avi, you said about the time management, that's absolutely critical. I also add to that budget, right? And then the rest of my team, because here's what's beautiful about like what you were saying. When it's time, I call it budget season, which was like the worst thing in the world for me. You know, you sit in that room and everybody's just picking it apart, right? But when you can turn it around and you can say, well, here's how our time has been allocated, right? So just on basic keeping the lights on, I call it, the team is spending 75% of their time. And I'm taking help desk tickets, right, projects and things like that from the previous year. And I'm saying, okay, we average 6.5 hours a day doing this, right? Which frees up this much time for us to work towards these other things. And then the budget, because I want to know how much time, how much money, and how much of the skills of my team are actually going to the things that the business said are high priority. And you mentioned something, Ivy, earlier about the ability to visualize that, right? Because I can sit in that room and have a conversation with you, right? Nope. Right? Because there's a whole bunch of other things going on, right? I mean, the biases and, oh, I just really don't understand, but I don't want to admit that I don't understand. You know, all of those things. So when you can visualize and just turn it back around, it allows you to sort of like lead up without, being a jerk about it. And I think when your team sees that, they feel stable because they can see where every action that they take is impacting not just IT, but we're actually helping the business move forward, right? Because the business is trying to do this. And when I do this little thankless task, it's not just a thankless task anymore. I can see how that moved the whole company forward by my small contribution. So I think it all, ties in together, being able to see that.
And it bleeds out of IT and our roles too. Like just by understanding, and I'd say that budget is not just money, right? That's a time budget, the skill budget, the financial
Yes.
budget, right?
Yes. Yes.
If you take all of that and if you work towards understanding how much money something costs, why it costs that much, because you have X amount of labor, why your labor costs so much, because you have a really good skill set, because there's not many of you that can do this.
Yes.
The more you can understand that in your own company or your own environment, I feel like that makes you comprehend outside things better. You understand why a lawyer costs as much as, well, actually, no, I don't know if any of us will ever understand why a lawyer costs as much as they do. But you'll understand why, like your electrician, when they come to fix your light switch, right? Why they cost $300 an hour, because know it's not just that one thing they're doing; it's everything else they have to take care of, everything else you have to have an understanding of. And I think that just makes you comprehend economics a bit better, and it gives you a little bit better when you're at the grocery store, just understanding the concept of why avocados are too expensive right now. And then you're like, oh, right, because avocados are seasonal and we don't have them all the time. But then bananas are the same price for year round because they're a commodity that I'm going for too far into this, but you understand what I mean.
Well, I think the point, this is one of, I sort of start right in the beginning of the coaching, exactly what you said. Leadership is an exercise in applied economics, because economics is not just about money, right? It's about how you allocate your time. It's allocating scarce resources. So we have our time, our budget, right? Our skill set, but it's also an opportunity cost, and just understanding that. So I can go fix your printer, no problem. But while I'm doing that, here's what I'm not doing, right? This is what it's costing. And when you start thinking more like an economist, the whole role changes. Your relationship with leadership, you start seeing opportunities to move the business forward. So I'm not just the fix it person, right? The IT person, oh, it breaks, I fix it. Or there's a project, I manage it, we implement it, and we're done. Now I get a seat at the table. Now I'm that strategic partner, right? That's actually strategizing with the business. So instead of these last minute, oh, we didn't tell you guys that instead of that, you're actually at the table, you're in the meeting, and they're turning to you and they're asking you. And it all starts with just sort of how we view ourselves and our role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the last questions I had was, what are some red flags that indicate you're carrying too much individual work? And I think that kind of ties in with what you're saying, which is, well, you're not able to focus on those bigger strategic goals. You're focused on fixing someone's printer or answering a ticket. When is your time worth? How much is your time worth? It's
Right.
probably worth more than answering a ticket about, someone needs a password reset.
And it's sometimes like with that too, it's kind of sometimes hard to tell when, depending on how your budget is or how your company allocates time or pays for tickets or pays for any of that stuff internally. But if you are billing yourself at, let's say, $100 an hour from a company perspective, that's what it costs to run you as an individual. And you're spending 2 hours to fix a $150 printer. You're literally wasting time, right? Get rid of the printer, replace it. That is faster. You have to think of all of that as the full economic picture. It's not just money. It's not just time. It's not just resources. It's all of it. Is it cheaper, faster, better just to do it one way versus another? And the hardest thing for an individual contributor to understand is that you're never just an individual contributor, right? You're part of a team. You're part of this company. Like your contribution carries over into so much more than just you, your job, and your paycheck. It's important to understand that. And then from a leadership side, if you find yourself fixing printers or fixing those mundane tier 1 tickets, are you doing that because you don't have the time, or are you doing that because you feel like you have to, or are you doing it because you're overwhelmed on the other stuff and you just need something easier to do? And you need those small tasks where you're like,
hey, I don't need that call out.
It's like, hey, I know how to change toner. That's an easy win, and you can take it. It's something that we have to do, right? It's something that we need, those wins in our life. We need that.
Yeah.
But I think once
you're
a leader,
dopamine, right? So
you have to
satisfaction.
You have to fight that will of just like you have to do it. I need that win. You have to find those wins in a way that's I feel like a little bit more efficient for your role. I honestly don't know how you do that, but we're all learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, perfect. Thank y'all so much for joining. Do y'all have any last thoughts or words of advice on how an IT leader can kind of better balance between these tasks?
Yes, I would say prioritize. Talk to the business leaders. Have a clear understanding of where they're trying to go, what they want to do, and absolutely force them to quantify. Don't let them off the hook. Here's our goals. You know, we're going to increase revenue 25% over the next 3 years. And we're going to open new stores and we're going to do all these things. Great. Understand the contribution that each of those gives to that goal, because you can't align yourself with that business if you don't understand how important those things are to that business. Even though you think, oh, well, we did this project and you said it was important. It's like, yeah, but you didn't get this done. Oh, yeah, I should have asked. So quantify, 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 scale of 1 to 5. How important is this to you? And then when you take that back to your cave and you're hammering out your budget and your projects, you'll have a clear idea and you'll always be in alignment with the business.
Mm-hmm.
I think delegate early, often, and aggressively. And don't ever lose sight of the fact that things can be urgent, but they might not be important.
Mm-hmm.
And the important things are the things that are really, I mean, they're the things that only the leader can do. And you can't delegate those things. So it's really important to not lose sight of those things, like what Nate was just talking about. There's no one else that can be that interface with the business. And if, swapping out a printer costs a lot of money time-wise for if it's the leader that's doing it, and it's also the opportunity cost.
Yep. And I think for me, IT is super stressful in a weird way. Like, you don't realize it looking in. It's like, oh, it's just computers, but the technology is ingrained into nearly every single part of everybody's job.
Yep.
In different ways too. So for me, it's really just try to have fun. Try to just do something with your team that gives them a morale boost, gives them that dopamine rush, that gets them going. Whether it's like a call like this, like, Brittany, you and I have known each other for quite a while now, and it's just nice to be able to talk. Like, this is cool, right? It's something like this. Even if you're having a morning meeting, just have fun with it. Do something stupid during the call. Like, make everybody laugh. Tell stories. The small little social interactions just help get you motivated for the day, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, perfect. We are right on time. So thank y'all so much for joining today. I really appreciate you taking your time out to talk about this topic. And then we have our next stream in a couple of weeks. I believe it's the CIO journey, if I remembered correctly. We're going to be talking with somebody that is a CIO and has kind of a virtual CIO suite of services too. So it'll be a good chat talking about how to go from, entry-level IT manager all the way up to CIO. So should be great. But in the meantime, thank y'all so much for joining. Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for those in chat that joined as well. And I will see y'all next time. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.